I came home from my shift at the Veterans Affairs Hospital, and something really strange was waiting for me. I saw a big lockbox hanging on my front door, and when I looked down at my small front yard, there was a large for sale sign planted right in the grass. I felt my stomach drop. My condo, the home I had lived in for 4 whole years, was being sold, and I didn't even know about it. I couldn't believe it. How could this happen? I felt my hands shake a little as I fumbled with my keys, hoping that maybe this was all a mistake. I tried my key in the door, and thankfully it still worked. I slowly opened the door and stepped inside, but my home didn't feel like mine anymore. Inside, I saw signs that people had been in my home while I was gone. Business cards were scattered on the kitchen counter. The furniture had been moved around. My favorite couch, the one I had picked out carefully 4 years ago, was shoved 3 feet to the left. On my coffee table was a staging guide that told people to remove personal items for better buyer appeal. My personal items, the things that told the story of my life, were supposed to be moved out so someone else could imagine living here. I felt a tight knot in my chest. My home, my life. All of it felt like it was being taken away without me even knowing. I grabbed my phone and called my mother. I needed answers. "Oh, good. You saw the sign," Mom said, her voice bright and cheerful. "We wanted to tell you first, but your father was just so excited. He went ahead and listed it." I blinked, trying to process what she just said. "Isn't it wonderful?" she continued, as if everything she was saying was normal. "Isn't what wonderful?" I asked, my voice shaking a little. "That we're selling the condo." Mom said, "The market is perfect right now. Your dad's realtor friend says we can get at least $425,000, maybe more if we find the right buyer." I slowly sank down onto my couch. My couch, the one someone had just moved to the left, suddenly felt very small under me. I felt a mix of confusion, anger, and disbelief. "Mom," I asked carefully, "why are you selling my condo?" "Well, it's not exactly yours, dear," Mom said. "It belongs to the family. Your grandmother's death benefit paid for it, so really it belongs to all of us. And right now, your sister needs the money more than you need all this space." I felt my chest tighten, like someone had wrapped a rope around it. My grandmother, my brave, strong grandmother, had left money for me. She had been a decorated Army nurse who served in Vietnam. I had followed her into military service. I was her only grandchild. The idea that my parents could just take away my home to give my sister money felt wrong. "What does Lila need money for?" I asked slowly, carefully, trying to keep my voice calm. "For her wedding, of course," Mom said cheerfully. "And the honeymoon in Bali. And a down payment on a house with Adrian. The wedding alone is costing $60,000. Your father and I just can't cover it all. So we're selling the condo. You can find an apartment. You're single. You don't need 2 bedrooms. I felt my hands go cold. My voice barely came out as I whispered, "I'm a veteran with a disability rating. I live in VA-subsidized housing." "Oh, that disability thing, darling," Mom said. "You look fine. I'm sure you can work full-time once you're in a smaller place and feeling motivated. Living in such a nice condo has made you complacent." My disability thing was not a small problem. It was a traumatic brain injury and PTSD from my deployment in Afghanistan. My complacency was working 30 hours a week as a medical coordinator at the VA hospital while managing chronic migraines and anxiety attacks. My parents had never really understood that. I tried to stay calm. "When did you list the condo?" I asked. "This morning," Mom said. "We've already had 3 showings. Your father is so proud. He's handling it himself since he just got his real estate license last month. He's been studying so hard." I felt my jaw drop. My father had gotten his real estate license, and his very first listing was my home. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "We have a showing at 6 o'clock tonight," Mom continued. "Can you make sure you're not there? It's harder to sell when the current occupant is home. And darling, maybe take those military photos off the wall. Buyers prefer neutral decor." My military photos. They weren't just pictures. They were my history. My grandmother in her uniform. My platoon in Afghanistan. The commendation I had received for evacuating wounded soldiers under fire. My life, my achievements, my memories, all part of my identity. "I need to talk to Dad," I said. "He's with a potential buyer right now, but he'll call you later." "Oh, and Riley, start packing. Your father's optimistic we'll have an offer by next week. You'll want to be ready to move quickly." She hung up before I could respond. I sat there for a long time, staring at my walls. Then I opened my laptop and pulled up my housing file. The one I kept perfectly organized because navigating VA benefits required careful documentation of everything. This condo wasn't just any property. It was purchased through the VA Specially Adapted Housing Grant, a federal program for disabled veterans. The grant had covered $11,216 of the purchase price. The property deed had specific restrictions and protections attached to it. My parents apparently had no idea about any of this. I called the VA housing coordinator, Simone, the woman who had helped me navigate the grant process 4 years ago. Simone, it's Riley Carter. I need help. My parents just listed my SAH property for sale without authorization, I said, trying to stay calm. Her response was immediate and sharp. They did what? I explained everything. The for sale sign, the lockbox on the door, the scheduled showings. My father had just gotten his real estate license and decided to sell my condo. Does he understand it's federally protected housing? Simone asked. I don't think he knows it's protected at all, I said. Riley, this is serious. Unauthorized sale attempts of SAH properties are federal violations. Who's the listing agent? My father, Gregory Mitchell. He got his license last month. Give me 30 minutes. Don't agree to anything. Don't sign anything. And definitely don't move out, Simone said firmly. 30 minutes later, my doorbell rang. I opened the door to find a couple in their 40s. The woman was holding a folder. Hi, we're here for the 6 o'clock showing, she said. I'm Vanessa. This is my husband, Nathan. Is the listing agent here yet? There's been a mistake, I said. This property isn't actually for sale. Oh, but we saw it online, Vanessa said, holding up her phone. Gregory Mitchell is the agent. He sent us the door code for the lockbox. I looked at the screen. There was my living room, photographed that very morning while I was at work. The listed price was $435,000. The description said, charming 2-bed, 2-bath condo, perfect for first-time buyers or investors. There was no mention of the VA grant. No mention of federal restrictions. No mention that the seller was illegally attempting to sell his daughter's protected housing. I'm sorry you made the trip, I said, my voice calm but firm. This is my home. It's not for sale. My father made an error. Nathan frowned. An error? We've been pre-qualified for a mortgage. This is the third property we've looked at this week. I understand, I said, but the listing is unauthorized. I'm the legal owner, and I never agreed to sell. Vanessa's expression shifted from confused to annoyed. Is this some kind of scam? We could report this, she said, clearly frustrated. You should report it, I said, to the state real estate board. The listing agent does not have authority to sell this property. They left, still muttering, and 20 minutes later my father arrived. His face red like thunder. Riley, what the hell did you just do? He demanded. Vanessa Stevens called my broker saying, You told them the condo isn't for sale. Do you know how embarrassing that is? I took a deep breath. More embarrassing than illegally listing your daughter's federally protected housing without her consent, I said quietly. He froze. What are you talking about? Dad, sit down. We need to have a conversation you should have had before planting a for sale sign in my yard, I said. He sat reluctantly on the couch, which someone had rearranged again that morning. This condo wasn't purchased with Grandma's death benefit, I began. It was purchased using a VA Specially Adapted Housing Grant. Do you know what that is? Some kind of veteran housing thing, he asked. Yes, I said. It's a federal grant program for disabled veterans. The government provided $11,216 toward the purchase price. Because of that, there are permanent restrictions and protections. You cannot sell it without VA approval. It has to remain my primary residence as long as I need adapted housing. Trying to sell it without permission is a federal violation. His face grew pale. But you're the owner. You can sell whenever you want, he said. Yes, I am the owner, I said firmly. You are not. And even I can't sell without going through the VA approval process, notifying them, and getting clearance. You definitely cannot sell it. But your mother said. Mom was wrong, I said, cutting him off. Grandma's survivor benefit went into my general savings. The condo was purchased through a completely separate federal program. I already have showings scheduled, Dad said quietly, as though saying it out loud might make it real. 3 more tomorrow. You need to cancel them and remove the listing immediately, I said, my voice steady. Riley, be reasonable, he said, trying one last time. Lila needs this money. Her wedding is in 3 months. I stared at him. Lila needs money for a $60,000 wedding, I said slowly. So you're trying to illegally sell my disability housing for that? It's not illegal, he said stubbornly. I'm a licensed real estate agent now. I can list properties. You can list properties you have legal authority to sell, I said firmly. This is not one of them. For a long moment he said nothing. The weight of the situation finally seemed to hit him. I could see it in his eyes, the realization that what he had done was not only wrong, but could get him in serious trouble. I felt a mix of relief and frustration. Relief because my home was safe for now, and frustration because my parents had not taken the time to understand what my life really looked like. They had made assumptions, thinking money and weddings were more important than my safety, my home, and my rights as a disabled veteran. I took a deep breath and leaned back on the couch, trying to calm myself. My home was mine, my memories were mine, and my life had rules that even my parents had to respect. No one could take that away from me. My phone rang. It was Simone from the VA. She said, "Riley, I've reviewed your case. I'm calling with our legal team to talk about your house." Then a man joined the call. He said, "Ms. Mitchell, this is Marcus Liu from the VA Housing Legal Division. Can you tell me if your house at 847 Riverside Drive, Unit 12, was put up for sale without your permission?" I felt my stomach drop. I said, "Yes, my dad put it up this morning." Marcus asked, "Your dad is Gregory Mitchell, who just got a real estate license with Prestige Realty?" I said, "Yes, that's him." "Is he there with you now?" "He's sitting right here," I said. "Can you put him on speaker so I can talk to him directly?" I pressed the speaker button on my phone. My dad looked confused and more nervous. He didn't say anything at first, just fidgeting with his hands. Marcus said, "Mr. Mitchell, this is Marcus Liu with the Department of Veterans Affairs Legal Division. I am calling because you tried to sell a house that is protected by the government at 847 Riverside Drive." Dad's voice came out small and shaky. "I didn't know it was protected." Marcus explained. "The house was bought using a special VA grant for people with disabilities. The rules for this type of housing are public, and they clearly say the house is protected. Did you read the rules before listing it for sale?" There was silence. Dad didn't know what to say. "I thought since my daughter owned it, I could list it to help the family," Dad said finally, almost whispering. Marcus said very firmly, "Your daughter owns the house. You have no legal right to sell it. Trying to sell it without her permission breaks the law. It is considered fraud." Dad's voice cracked. "Fraud?" he asked, almost scared. Marcus continued, "Yes. You tried to sell a house that is not yours. You acted like you had the right to sell it, but you don't. That is fraud. Also, you didn't tell potential buyers that there are rules protecting this house. That is against state real estate laws too." Dad said, "I didn't know about the rules. I didn't know it was illegal." Marcus replied, "Not knowing doesn't help. Ignorance is not an excuse, especially for someone who is a licensed real estate agent. You are required to check the rules and laws before listing any property for sale. That is called due diligence, and you didn't do it." Simone spoke again. "Mr. Mitchell, I am required to report this to both the State Real Estate Board and federal housing authorities. They will investigate whether your license should be suspended or even revoked." "Suspended?" Dad said, standing up. He looked shocked and scared. Marcus said again, "You tried to sell your daughter's home without her permission. That is illegal. You misrepresented that you had the right to sell the property, which is fraud. You also failed to disclose the federal protections to potential buyers, which is against the law." Simone asked me, "Riley, did you give your father permission to list the house or to show it to buyers?" "No," I said. "I came home and saw a for sale sign in my yard and a lockbox on my door. I didn't authorize any of it. Did you receive any money or sign any papers?" Simone asked. "No," I said. "I only learned about it from my mom." Marcus said, "Mr. Mitchell, you must remove the listing immediately. Cancel all scheduled showings. You must contact every potential buyer or agent who viewed the property and tell them the listing was unauthorized. You also need to hire a lawyer because the state board will be contacting you about your license." "This is insane," Dad said. "I was only trying to help the family. We were trying to help with Lila's wedding." Simone said coldly, "You were trying to sell your daughter's home without permission. That is not helping. That is breaking the law. There is nothing helpful about that." After they hung up, Dad sat heavily on the couch with his face in his hands. I could see how scared and upset he was. He looked like he had just realized how serious this was. He looked at me and said, "Riley, you have to fix this." "Fix what?" I asked. "Call them back," he said. "Tell them it was a mistake. Say you gave me permission." "I didn't give you permission," I said. But Lila's wedding needs money, he said. I didn't give you permission. Her wedding is not a reason to sell my home, I said. Are you really going to let them suspend my license over this? He asked. Are you really going to pretend you did nothing wrong? I asked back. He looked at me, his anger starting to replace the panic. I worked for months to get this license. I studied for the exam 3 times. This was supposed to be my second career, he said. Maybe you should have learned what due diligence means before listing your first property, I said. This is your fault, he said suddenly. If you just told us about the VA grant, none of this would have happened. I did tell you when I bought the condo 4 years ago, I said. I explained the whole process. You said, that's nice, and then changed the subject to Lila's college graduation. I don't remember that, he said. I know you don't remember a lot of things about my service or my disability, I said. You only remember the milestones in Lila's life. That's why this happened. He stood up. Your mother is going to be devastated. Lila is counting on this money. Then Lila needs a less expensive wedding, I said. And you need to call your broker and explain what happened before the state board finds out. You really won't help me. I really won't lie to federal authorities to cover up your illegal listing, I said. No, he said. He left without saying another word. Mom called 10 minutes later. She was crying. Riley, how could you do this to your father? His license is being investigated. He could lose everything. I said, Mom, he tried to sell my home without permission. What did you expect would happen? We were trying to help Lila. Don't you care about her happiness? I care about Lila. I don't care about funding a $60,000 wedding by making myself homeless, I said. You're not homeless. You can get an apartment, Mom said. This is my home. It is adapted for my disability and protected by federal law. He tried to sell it anyway, I said. They were just trying to help, Mom said, still crying. They were trying to sell property they didn't own and didn't have permission to sell. That's literally wrong, I said. Over the next week, many things happened quickly. Dad removed the listing and canceled all showings. 3 potential buyers filed complaints with Prestige Realty. His broker suspended him while the state investigated. The VA sent a formal letter explaining that any future interference with my housing could lead to federal charges. Lila called on Saturday. She was furious. You ruined everything. Mom and Dad were going to give me $100,000 from the condo sale. Now I have to scale back the entire wedding. I said, they were going to make me homeless to fund your wedding. You could have just moved. This is adapted housing for my disability. It is protected by the government. Lila shouted, your fake disability. You just want to avoid working full-time. I hung up on her. Dad's preliminary hearing with the state board happened 3 weeks later. Simone from the VA testified about federal housing protections and how illegal my dad's listing was. The buyers who had been misled testified about being shown a property under false pretenses. The state board suspended Dad's license for 6 months. They also required him to take extra training on property law and ethics before he could get it back. Mom called me afterward. I hope you're happy. Your father's career is ruined. I said, he didn't do basic due diligence before trying to sell my home. They were trying to use my housing to pay for Lila's wedding. That's not helping. That's favoritism. That's unfair. We've always tried to treat both of you girls equally. You literally tried to sell my home to pay for Lila's party. That's the opposite of equality. Mom had no answer to that. 2 months later, Lila had her wedding. It was scaled back a lot. A local venue, half the guest list, and no Bali honeymoon. She didn't invite me. Neither did my parents. I didn't mind. I spent that weekend painting my living room. My living room in my condo. The one that was still mine because federal law had protected it when my own family wouldn't. Simone from the VA called to check in. How are you holding up? Better than expected, I said. Turns out boundaries feel good once you establish them. My parents are still not speaking to me much. They sent a Christmas card to the person currently living at my address, so that's something. Simone laughed and said, you did the right thing, Riley. Standing up for your housing rights protects not just you, but every veteran in adapted housing. Thanks, Simone, for everything, I said. After we hung up, I walked through my condo. 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, wide doorways for wheelchair access I didn't need yet, but might someday. A roll-in shower adapted for my worst migraine days when standing was impossible. My home, purchased with a federal grant designed to honor my service and accommodate my disability. Protected by laws that valued my housing security over my family's wedding budget. Dad had thought he could sell it because family money was more important than my housing needs. Instead, he learned the hard way that federal housing protections exist precisely to prevent families from doing what he tried to do. His license was suspended. His second career was delayed. Our relationship permanently changed. All because he planted a for sale sign in my yard without asking if he had the right. I took down the last business card left by a confused buyer and threw it away. My home, my rights, my boundaries, finally enforced exactly as the law intended.